none of those boys would want us to give up the life we have for those that we lost. Like, that's a lot of loss. That's a lot of loss. It's out of order. But you also become acutely aware of the impermanence of everything. And like, really, who has anything figured out?
Yeah.
But somehow you do. You do. Like, and I think our life prepared us to figure out how to trudge through this.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 108. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. I am pumped about today's conversation. The minute that this name came up, I was like, oh yes, this will be awesome. So before we get into it, I want to quickly, for all those who are listening to this or listen to the past shows, we're trying to get some more awareness around this podcast. And if you have time, we'd love it if you subscribe to it. Like it, leave a comment, send me a DM or my guest a DM. We're trying to build more exposure. So anything you can do to help us out, we'd appreciate it. Without further ado, name and who you are.
Thanks, Jeff. It's a real honor to be asked to come and sit down with you. I'm Bonnie MacRae-Kilb, and I grew up in Calgary. Well, actually, I was born in Regina. 3 years old, my parents moved to Calgary with our family. I'm the youngest of four and the only girl, so pretty sweet. Yeah. I'm still being reminded of how special my place in the family was. So,
what are you doing right now?
What am I doing right now?
Well, just like in the last, when I say who you are, how would you summarize that?
I think I'm, first of all, I know I am someone that definitely, I have a lot of compassion, and I have kind of a servant leadership style coming up through sport and my particular activities. I look for the best in people, and I want to kind of raise those around me to a different level. And I think I have a great lifestyle. I'm very fortunate. I think I have a lot of gratitude for the opportunities that have come my way and the support I have around me.
It's lucky. I'm
very lucky. Very lucky.
You've seen a few of these shows.
Yes.
So you kind of know where we're going to go with this. So I can't wait to hear your story. So take it back as far as you want to go. You know, where you grew up. You touched on it, but how you grew up. Yeah. How your parents influenced your three brothers. Just your environment and how it kind of influenced you. And then we'll kind of weave our way to where you are today. Okay. So I think we were, as my siblings and I were raised in a house with a really good work ethic. You know, my mom's parents were farmers, and it was a lot about work. My dad taught me the value of play, and my parents were not pushy. They were very supportive. I started in sport at a really young age. My mom's dream for her young girl, who was like probably 5'8" in grade 1 or something ridiculous, was to be a dancer. And my parents didn't have a lot of money. And I remember when I turned 5, my mom had enough money to take me to the Alan Kazubo School of Dance, which was a big deal here in Calgary. My first ballet lesson, and 10 minutes in, he's like, no, no ballet. Your daughter is tap dancer. Just the way you were moving? It was just
too rough and tumble. Like, you know, keeping up with my brothers. Yeah. So my mom was distraught, but, you know, off I went to tap dancing, and respect to him, because he wasn't like, oh, and over here we have tap dancing and you can do jazz. And we had one activity. So I did that until grade 6, and I don't think I really loved it. And I really didn't like those curlers in my hair, etc. And then I had an accident. I was too big for my desk. Our desks at St. Leo here in Calgary, it was a table and a chair, and my legs were too long. So the table actually teetered on my legs, and I leaned back in my chair, and my desk came down and like cut 2 toes really severely.
No way.
So I didn't do my grade 6 tap exam. But what happened was I turned courses completely. And we lived out in Lakeview. My parents built in 1968. And I signed up for the Lakeview community softball team.
Cool.
And we had extraordinary coaches, parents of two of the girls, Alice and Bob Thomas, and I loved it. I never knew how much I love sport, and that was the beginning of sport.
Did your when you grew up with three brothers, was there this like ball of energy wherever you guys went? Like, was it, you spent a lot of time outside? Were you guys playing like random things around sport, but nothing organized?
Absolutely. We lived in Lakeview Village, right on 66th Avenue, and in those days, there weren't many rules. Well, at least we didn't follow them. So my dad would bring home snowmobiles from the gas plants, or my brothers would got into motorcycling. We literally rode out the backyard, down 66, into the Weasel Head. We were snowmobiling on the Glenmore Reservoir in the winter.
No way.
Like, it was crazy, and it was fun, and I was trying to keep up with them. And my mom knew we'd show up when we got hungry. So it was really unrestricted play. So not organized. I didn't do any organized sport till grade 6.
That keeping up with your brothers, was it so I have a younger brother and a younger sister. So I'm the oldest, and my little sister, like, we kind of not tormented her, but like, you know, she was the goalie when we were shooting tennis balls. She was just, you know, she was always there and just like wanted to be around. Was it this idea of keeping up? Was it nonstop? Like, you just pushed yourself to just be there? And
I have to say yes. I mean, there was a real pecking order. You know, the oldest, and then he would, you know, go after the second oldest, and then the third, and then there's me. But I was in the net with the masking tape net and soft hockey pucks in our undeveloped basement. So it was tough upbringing, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So you find softball?
I find softball. Yeah, it was just like I don't know, my mom signed me up. And I mean, team sport. And I think, you know, I study kinesiology. So in the Eastern view of things, they do a lot of physical literacy, which in the olden days, the Eastern Bloc, was a lot of movement education. And I think that's what that dance was. So then when I got into sport, it was like, do this. Oh, okay, I know how to put my foot there and my hand there. And so that dance training really was a natural transition.
Yep.
And I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of that play. I loved it. It was really something I had to do every day.
Was there other like young girls doing sport around you, or did you notice that, or did
I didn't really notice it. It was a girls' softball team, and two of them were very good badminton players, but I didn't really notice. And unfortunately, like, my parents were just cool with whatever we did. My dad is still a jock. He's 93. He curls 3 times a week. He golfs in the summer. So my dad really knew the value of play, and he's a real competitor. My mom grew up in a convent, but like, she's probably the real athlete, but she just never had an opportunity.
Growing up in that with parents like that, do they actually sit you down and explain to you how important sport is, or do they just kind of provide opportunities that you can kind of get your own experiences and figure it out?
Definitely, it was self-led. It's very much an intrinsic motivation. I have to say, there was a hot meal on the table when I got home, and the socks were clean and back in the drawer, but they were not pushing it at all. Not at all.
Amazing. So what else happens? You're playing softball. How old are you? This is like
I'm like 12.
Okay.
And I'm tall, but I'm pretty coordinated.
Were you tall from, like you said, coming up like day one?
Day one, like, yeah. Like, I remember the Christmas pageant, and I'm in the middle with the T, and I'm like head and shoulders above every other kid. Tall early.
Okay.
So then I grew into my body quickly, and then was pretty coordinated. And I went to junior high, grade 7, probably the next year, and I was just like, oh my God, cross-country tryouts, volleyball, basketball, badminton, gymnastics, like, I just did it all. And then I got recognized at a track meet. Bob Carver from the Thunderbolt Track Club is like, wow, you can run. And I'm like, what?
What were you doing, the short stuff, like sprints or long?
Well, I think he probably saw me at a cross-country meet.
Okay, so
Yeah, and then I started training. And we trained 365 days of the year.
No way.
Yeah, like all year long in track and field, but still doing all the school sports. until later on in my high school career. I had to decide what I was doing.
Was junior high just all sports to you? Like when you think back to those times, are those your like fondest memories?
Yeah, they were. I was a good student.
Yep.
I liked to do a good job, and I'm detail orientated and committed, and I'm not afraid of hard work. So I didn't mind school, but for sure I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for phys ed. I couldn't wait for team practice. And we had some remarkable leaders. Like I feel so blessed and so lucky. Like really good coaches. Like I remember in junior high, Doug Easton, like practice never ended until we wanted to go home. So if we were having fun and we were playing and he was teaching us, it just kept going on. And we were good. And I then was surrounded by some really like-minded young girls that love to be active.
You have such a like crisp memory of this.
I do.
Like is it, for me, like when as you're saying this, I'm like, I don't know if I have. I guess there's a couple of hockey coaches that I felt were good coaches, but I probably didn't. I still don't fully recognize what made them good or if they actually were good. But it feels like you really remember and understand how good they were.
I really, really do. And I have so much gratitude for just, I mean, it was luck. Like it could have been, well, a supervisor that knew nothing about it and really not made it fun. In fact, our junior high volleyball expert played club volleyball. And when we aged out of grade 9, he moved with us to Bishop Carroll.
No way.
So we had this same coach leading our programs in volleyball in particular for a long time. And just very fortunate. And then it just kind of everything else blew up from there. Yeah.
So you go to Carroll.
Yeah.
So back then, was it also, it's always been like self-guided, right?
Yeah.
So, and you were, was that your, did you have another choice or was it always you're going to go to Carroll?
Well, I was representing Canada in track and field and volleyball in high school. So Bishop Carroll was so perfect. You could, go to school and you could zip through things and you could take stuff with you, and it was a perfect match, and it was the closest high school.
Right.
I was in the separate system.
Yep.
And it was really good for me.
You snuck that in there. You're playing for the Canadian national team. So you're playing track, you're playing all the school sports in junior high. Come high school, what happens? Did you have to right away specialize and do one, or like what actually happened when you got to grade 10?
No, I kept doing them all. It was busy. Like I got home late at night. And I remember like walking, cycling, busing. When I turned 16, my parents had an old 1965 Valiant convertible for me because they didn't want me on the bus. But I was so driven to get to all these practices. So grade 12 comes around and I couldn't do both. And then the injury aspect gets into play. And I remember telling the basketball coach at Bishop Carroll, Ernie LaCusta, that I wasn't playing basketball. And he was not happy with me. But I was sure by then my forever sport was going to be volleyball.
No way. I
had decided volleyball, the culture of volleyball is different. Track was a blast. I was a multi-event athlete and, throwing, jumping, running. It was pentathlon in those days.
Oh, no way.
So anyway, it's still individual. And the team aspect of volleyball and in the preparation was really more fun. It was a game, it wasn't just yourself on the track. Or I didn't mind that, but I chose volleyball because it was more fun.
Not because you were better at it? Like, were you significantly better at one particular sport, or was there a couple that you were like dominant at?
Well, I think my two best sports were track and field and volleyball. Okay. I put a lot of time in. And I think the track really elevated me in the sport of volleyball because I was really an all-round athlete. Like I was really strong. I didn't overtrain in one sport. I did, because I was multi-event, I had to train out all of that. And I didn't know. The science behind sport was different then. I didn't know what I was getting. But when I would go to volleyball tryouts for, junior national team or something, 15, 16 years old, like I was pretty fit. And that helped. they could teach you how to play volleyball if you're an athlete first. And I think I was recognized for that. I don't really know.
Do you have strong feelings about the idea of the younger generation right now specializing at a young age in like 12 months of the year?
Yeah, very strong feelings.
I'd love to.
I really do.
I've had this, so a friend of mine, Tyler Sloan, played in the AHL, NHL, grew up around a household where his dad was like a power skater, but he is very adamant about the idea of specializing at a young age is not good for anybody.
Yeah.
And as soon as you were talking, and as soon as you said like a rounded athlete, I was like, oh yeah, I want to hear this.
Yeah, I'm not a sports scientist, but from what I read and what I see, I spent 30 years in volleyball coaching. We get calls like, can you do summer training with our 11-year-old? And it was just like, no, we can't. We really don't agree with it. And I've asked a lot of leaders in other sports, and it's really sad. I mean, even if you don't specialize at a young age and train year round, the whole business of sport has taken over, and parents get fed the wine and the Kool-Aid or whatever, and they think they need to do, spring power skating and then spring league and then summer league and then quadrant hockey and then all the fundraising. And like, I don't know how we're going to change, but I think I'm not an expert in hockey and volleyball, maybe also the business of sport, like these people running all these programs. And I don't know. I think even our national organizations know we need to do more cross-training. The body develops differently when you're moving on different planes in different directions from different sports. The burnout factor. I mean, if I had a daughter, I mean, I don't care if she's in sport at 5. I need her in sport at 15. Yeah. And I don't need her dropping out at 13. And there's a huge bubble where girls and boys probably, they drop out, they burn out, they get bored, but I don't know what the solution is. Like the sports scientists know it's not the way to go, but I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it's a business. Once it becomes a business, who's gonna turn down money?
That's right.
Like you're not gonna take these individuals that have created these decent sized businesses around these sports. You can't tell them that, well, you can't run your business anymore, because that's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. And I guess this is where gratitude comes from me. Like I grew up at a good time. It was just so organic. Nothing was pushed. We were led by the passion to just do it and work hard. We worked really hard. Like looking back on it, probably a lot of overtraining. Like with our national team in Regina, we were training 6 to 8 hours a day. Yeah,
that's aggressive.
It's aggressive. It's a lot of jumping. I have a really great souvenir. Like my left ankle is shot. I wouldn't trade anything for that career, but the recovery wasn't part of it. Drink breaks were a privilege, but we were tough. Yeah. We were tough, and I think we're still tough.
Exactly. So grade 12, when you kind of decide that volleyball is going to be your thing, how do you get access to the Canadian teams? Like, how does that all work? Is there like, obviously you get your high school team and your high school season, then you get scouted to kind of start trying out for these different teams?
Right. In those days, we would play club volleyball, and there were very few clubs.
I was going to say, I don't.
Yeah, club volleyball. So you had to win provincials. So your club team from the city of Calgary had to be the best in the province to go to national championships. And there were identification camps, and there still are, at those same national championships. So you'd go there and there'd be 12 teams, and it was competitive. Now there's hundreds of teams. Everyone's daughter won the gold medal. And it's great because it's a lot of participation, but it's really different now. And the talent gets spread out in the recruiting wars, and it's just a whole different can of worms now. But it was a big deal. Some remarkable situations in grade 12, like I had already been ID'd in the junior national program. So then we would get invited. We had our airfare paid to go try out. Like it was so different. Cool. I was a carded athlete at 16, so I would get a monthly stipend, and I'm in high school. Like, we were so fortunate. I just can't expound upon that enough. But so the opportunities, we couldn't afford to go to nationals in grade 12. Our club team won, and it was provincials. We were sitting on the ground. We already knew we couldn't afford to go to Quebec City. And one of my teammates' father walked up. We were literally on the floor in tears because we were good. We were good. And some of us had been together for 4 years. And this father walked up with his wife and he said, "Girls, we're paying for your trip to national championships." Like, stuff like that. Wild. I mean, what? And so they paid for everything. We stayed at the Chateau Frontenac, Quebec. Like, what?
Crazy.
Luck.
How'd you do there?
We did well.
So you were good.
We did well. Yeah. Again, great leadership and lots of buy-in and support. Like, who does that?
What was it about volleyball and that team aspect that you kind of like pulled you in? I never played volleyball, so my thing was hockey. So that's kind of my point of reference for team sport. But what was it about volleyball that really kind of that connected with you?
I think volleyball, it's a unique sport because you really can't do anything on your own. You can't dribble through everybody and shoot. You can't. I mean, I'm not saying you just take this puck and stick handle and do it. Definitely there's a team aspect to all sports, but because you can't do anything on your own, it attracts a different mindset of an athlete, I think. Like, I don't know, you have to kind of put your ego aside, and it's very much build each other up, make each other, give credit. You know, if someone makes a good pass and the setter gives you the ball and you put it away, the first thing you do is give it back to those players that made you, you know, you're the finisher, but it happens in the back row, etc. So the culture of the sport really appealed to me. And to be honest with you, I wasn't that interested in, you know, fingernails in the eyeballs. And I was tough. But I just was like, you know what, you can take out my knees and you can scratch my eyes and then you can take the ball. But in volleyball, that net is like, sorry, I'm just going to try to pound this ball past you.
Good luck.
And then slap my setter's hand and thank my passer. So it's different.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
So when you get to high school, obviously you're good, talented. The coach goes with you. Some teammates come with you. What happens during the high school years? What are you focused on?
Well, I really loved doing creative things as well. And at Bishop Carroll, you could do so many options. So I of course did all the HFR, health, fitness, and recreation. And I did all the options like home ec and sewing and art and drama and music and all the sciences because I wanted to go to university. I like to do it all.
Yep. Did you have a plan? Did you know in high school that you said you wanted to go to university, so you had an idea what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Did you understand where sport could take you, or did you have an idea where you wanted to go with it?
I don't think it was a real clearly laid out plan. I know my mom's mom and my dad's dad were both artists. My mom is an interior designer. She wanted to send me to Parsons School of Design. And I'm like, well, I got to play. I got to do my sports. I got to go sweat and jump and kick and scream and do my thing, right? So that at that point was not of interest to me. And because I was carded with Sport Canada, I could go to any university in Canada and have it fully paid for. Any school.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So the opportunity was, again, there. I was so fortunate, but I chose to drive up Crowchild Trail and be part of rebuilding a program here in Calgary. And I'm thrilled with that decision. And we did turn the program around and I met my husband.
So when you're, as a carded athlete, is there, like, did Calgary come talk to you about, like, we have a spot for you, or like you can, this is what the next 4 years look like if you show up, this is our idea, and then? Yeah,
well, my junior national team coach was transitioning from coaching only the men at UFC to coaching the men and the women, and I was being heavily recruited. There was a whole crop of young athletes being recruited, and some others from the junior national team that were coming to turn a program around. I don't think they won a match in Canada West the year before.
Oh, no way, they were that?
Yeah. Well, they were struggling. So there was an opportunity there to come in and really build a program from the ground up.
Yeah. Did you know what you wanted to take in university in high school? Like when your mom's talking, you got this creative background and she's suggesting you try this. Did you have other ideas of what you wanted to do?
No, but I just really thought I should do, in those days, physical education, kinesiology, because that was just more fun, right? Go and do all these activities and learn the science and learn more of the science of the human body and human performance and like really primitive mental training. Like it was just all starting, the science behind it.
Did you like that part of it? And were you smart enough to actually understand the sciences and do well at them?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. And again, there we had like some world-class sports scientists.
Really?
Working with our university team. Like we were already a training hub for a lot of Olympic athletes in Calgary. And behind that were the sports scientists. And we were guinea pigs as a university team. We already had, Dr. David Smith, we called him Dr. Death. He was working with the men's national volleyball team at the time, and he was working with the women's Dinny volleyball team. Like he was already looking at the whole body and how to, do specific things. What did the sport require? How to get faster twitch and jump higher and prevent injury, right?
And this was kind of early days sports science?
Early days. I think early days in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like, what are they doing over there in Eastern Europe? Well, we weren't doing that. But I think it was, in my memory, it was early days.
Yeah.
And it's come so far since then.
So what happens while you're at university? Where's your sport-wise and school-wise? And obviously you met your husband, so it seems like it was a time for you.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say the University of Calgary athletic program isn't what it was, but it was pretty phenomenal. A lot of Olympic athletes doing what I was doing at the same time. Coming through the program, a lot of swimmers, basketball players, volleyball players. Like we were surrounded by really high achievers. And it was a good place to be. And in the summers, I would go and train full time with the national team, or it was then year-round training. Don't get me wrong. It was year-round training, but it was just such a culture of excellence. And I don't know.
What does that do when you're surrounded by that kind of greatness all the time? What does it do to you?
Well, I wouldn't say I was competing against them. I think we were all just trying to lift each other up. Yep. You'd be in the weight room and, someone just returned from, world championships with a gold medal from swimming. And you're kind of like, oh, yeah, I better give myself a kick in the butt. So it was really a hotbed of elite athletes, Calgary. And then, we hosted the Olympics in '88 and we got the venues, and it was such a can-do spirit, and I never doubted it. And I felt really valued. I felt really valued for what my gifts were, and the coaching and the players I got to play with. I think we could say we were all unique pieces of a puzzle and really allowed to build and grow upon our special gifts.
What happened at the program over your time there? Did you turn it around?
Yeah, pretty fast.
So what happened?
Pretty fast. Well, I think we quickly won Canada West, and I think we won 4 years in a row, and we were in national finals 3 years in a row. Between my fourth and fifth year, I got an opportunity to go and play first division in Italy, which there'd only been one Canadian woman go over there. And it was just like an opportunity and a good time. So we left. My fiance at the time took a sabbatical, and we went to Europe and did that year in Italy and had our eyeballs opened, and it was amazing.
So you take a year off from school?
Yeah, I had graduated in Kines, and I came back and started environmental design to play my fifth year. But we took that year out and came back. We did not win the national championship. We lost in the finals. And that was always like, next year, we're gonna, win this championship. And unfortunately, as a player, I never won a national championship. I was an all-Canadian many times. I was a Canada West first team all-star, but we didn't do it as a team. So that was kind of unfortunate, but I don't think about that. The friends, I was up until last year still playing with a lot of these women.
Yeah.
And so the passion was there, and it was good old days.
It sounds just this like ball of energy of like high performance, just in an amazing environment. So going to play pro overseas.
Yeah.
The only female to ever, the first female to ever.
Second Canadian.
Yeah. So what does that even, was that even in your head as a potential opportunity as you're kind of coming through university, or was it kind of out of the blue that
Well, it was kind of a dream, right? Especially Italy, because they were really good. And we met the national coach and the team in Edmonton at the World Student Games. Yeah, or what's it, Commonwealth? World Students, I think. World Student Games. And he was talking to Brad, my husband, and said, we're looking for a foreigner. And in those days, they were allowed one. So it was actually like, what? You're going to take us? And Brad was going to go and coach with the Italian national coach, and I was going to be the foreigner. I don't think I really knew like what that was going to be like, but we just said yes. You figure it out, right?
Had you traveled before? Was like...
Well, lots, because we were all over the world training. It was a lot of, no disrespect, airports, hotels, buses, gyms, buses, hotels, gyms, buses, hotels, airports. And then sometimes on days off, we'd get to go and do something else. But we traveled a lot, and there was a lot of money. We traveled all over the world. Like, I think we've been to 50 countries.
Wow.
At such a young age. With your best friends. Doing the most fabulous thing on the planet for someone who loves to play volleyball. Yeah.
Doesn't get any better.
No, it was fun.
So what happened in Italy? Good experience?
So it was interesting. Like, the culture is so fantastic, but there's an adjustment, right? My son called me militaristic. So you get over there and it's like, so where's so-and-so? When does practice start? Like, they'd come walking in, and I was the foreigner. I had to be there an hour ahead of time. I had to be ready and be like, where's the setter? Where's Irene? Oh, she's on her way, So they're so laid back and they're so into people. But when that whistle blew, I'll tell you, they knew how to play. I think they knew how to compete. And maybe a generalized statement, as Canadians, we really knew how to practice.
Yep.
And then we get on the world stage, and we didn't maybe bring it on the stage as much as we did in the training grounds. But the Italians, wow, like fierce competitors. But kind of haphazard preparation was my experience. But like, we learned so many life skills there, and we kept saying, we got to remember to experience life, not just exist. In Canada, we got to work hard and try to get ahead, and Italians are like, wait a minute, come, let's have a coffee, slow down, Not on the sport court, but in life. A lot of time for people, and fabulous.
The exposure to pro sport, did that fuel you? Did that year tempt you into or open your eyes to what's possible in sport?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was really different. Like, it's a bit harsh. Like, I came from this beautifully coddled, you are our leader, you're our shining star, to you're the foreigner. This team wins or this team loses, it's on your back. And I'd be like, what? It's volleyball. Like, I need all this around me. So I had to get pretty tough. Like, the newspapers were harsh.
No way.
If we lost, it was my fault. And if we won, it was all me. So it was really bizarre. Fortunately, when I arrived, I couldn't really read or talk or understand it, but we learned pretty quickly. I remember waking up one morning and I actually dreamt in Italian. It was so awesome. Yeah.
Not a foreigner anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. Our team was average. We stayed in first division. They're very superstitious. Like, we go to venues where the team hadn't beaten this particular team in maybe 4 years. And before we got out of the bus, they were talking about how we're never going to win. So that was really different for me. But like, I was like their guest. I was just trying to play my best, and I couldn't change that. And the superstition part, it's just like wasn't my thing.
So what happens if you play there for a year and then decide to come back, or just that you just wanted to do something different? Like, what was the...
Well, I always went with just 1 year in mind. Brad had a 1 year sabbatical, and I wanted to go back and play my 5th year with my teammates that were still in the program. And it wasn't, I never really thought of it as an option to stay more than 1 year. You know, sometimes when an experience is that phenomenal, it's okay to let it go. And I wanted to go back to school, and I went back and started interior environmental design. I don't really love the direction of the program I chose. So when I finished that year and wrapped up my volleyball playing career, I went full time with the national team program, and we were trying to qualify. So
for the Olympics.
Yeah. So what happened, I was playing pro in 83, 84. We didn't qualify. So I left. And in those days, if you turned pro, the Canada view of it was, sorry, you went to do that, so we're not having you back. And so I didn't get the opportunity to play in Los Angeles when Cuba boycotted. Canada got in the back door for women's volleyball. And so be it. You know, so another player was playing in another country, and she tried to sue the Canadian Volleyball Association, all that, like whatever. In those days. Now every single player in the Olympics is playing pro somewhere in the world, or they're not there. It was just unfortunate. So we didn't qualify for 88. I had a baby by then in 1987, and we were at the last chance qualifier, you know, with baby in hand, and that didn't work out. But I have to say, I was my Olympic dream was delayed and not denied, because come full circle in 2012, my husband and I were there as technical officials. And you know what?
Amazing.
When you're in a team sport, if you don't qualify, you don't get that. So we did it in a really roundabout way. And that was his plan. I'm like, oh, there's no way. We're never going to get picked. And we did. And again, just really fortunate. And it was phenomenal.
The motherhood and playing at a high level of sport. Like, I find it fascinating. Like, just to be able to do both. Back then, did it happen often? Was it rare that you were achieving greatness in sport and being a mom?
I think so. Yeah. It was kind of weird. Like, I never thought about it. It was just like, I guess I was just, I hope I was never arrogant. I was confident. It was just what I did. Like, I had no explanation for it. But I remember, you know, playing and coming off and nursing the baby and completely sweaty and giving the baby to the trainer and going back on the court. And it was just what we did. And a women's team. So when the boys got a little bit older and I was coaching, like it was, I mean, it was just so natural. Like, I'm a female athlete and leader in sport, and there's these babies, and the babies are in the gym, and the girls are trying to reach their potential, and I'm coaching them, and I never gave it much thought. But it really wasn't very common. Like, it was kind of frowned upon, like babies crawling out from under the bleachers in a Canada West match, you know, like, what are you doing? It was okay.
Very different.
Yeah, very different. But so natural. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's just, I think people don't see it. They don't think about it. You know, they forget that that's part of life too. And then they expect this like high performance side to just be like all encompassing. So after your 5th year, where do you get going? Where do you...
Well, I moved back. I actually was born in Regina, and the team was training full-time in Regina. So I was there for 3 years. And
like playing World Cup, like kind of World Cup?
Yeah, we're playing World Championships, NORCECA Zone Championships. Depending the quadrennial. The big thing is to qualify for the Olympics. Unfortunately, we didn't, but there's all kinds of tournaments and training. And
this is like it's like a full-time job?
It's a full-time job. Okay. But I had graduated at least. I had my undergrad. So I had a lot of time to do creative things and make things and build things, and just to keep the other side of my brain going.
Yep.
We gave up a lot, and I started to question if volleyball was the right choice in those days. And
What'd you give up?
I gave up track, right?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't qualified with my team.
Right.
And I was pretty competitive. And I remember a few situations, and I'm not trying to rat out my teammates. I love them all, but we didn't meet a goal, and we just lost this crossover match at a big world championships. Our goal was to finish in the top 8 or something, and this match knocked us out of that. And like literally 7 minutes after we enter the dressing room and trying to wrap this up, like this was a 15-month plan. Somebody wanted to go to the flea market. And like, if I could have, I probably would have
dropped them.
I was like,
bubbling.
You want to go to the market? You don't hurt at all? Like, how do you not hurt? Like it's not win at all costs, but look what we've put aside to do this. And so then I wondered, like, am I not surrounded by enough people that are just so driven? And I was. There were lots of us, but like we hadn't had success on the world stage. We sat around 11, 12. We need to be top 8 in certain ways to make the Olympics. And it's hard. It's hard. We did the best we could, but for it just to be okay. And then I thought, what if I just stayed in track and I could just train harder and do it by myself?
Control all the variables.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't have made it either, but I wondered for a brief afternoon when it was about the flea market. But I love those players. I am who I am because of all the people that surrounded and lifted me and supported me, and likewise. So it's just a little bit of a question.
Well, and you said it earlier too, just about not, like, when you didn't win the national championships at university. Like, there's just this thing that's following you around that just to the very end. Can you get?
Well, I when I finished playing and was back in Calgary, I did start coaching, and we did win.
So you got it. So you got that.
You got to check these things off. Like, you can just do them in different ways. What is it? Not never, not
totally. So you played 3 years on the national team?
I was in the program over the course of 11 years. Okay. So it's like coming and going.
Yeah.
Here and there. Depended if it was year round or if it was seasonal or summer, and just kind of, then it ran its course. And I wanted to start our family. My husband's older. It was just like, okay, enough of that. But still went back and played more pro with now babies in tow, back to Switzerland. And
how old are you when you went to play in Switzerland?
30.
Okay.
31.
So you played the national team for all these years. Then you go play. So what does the pro world look like? How long did you play pro?
Okay, so we picked Switzerland because, we had these kids, and it was more about lifestyle. It wasn't like, it wasn't so intense. The league wasn't as good, but it was still an experience. It was about the lifestyle of, our sport giving us something at that point for the family to live in Europe. And we were in the French-speaking part of Switzerland in Neuchâtel, and the volleyball was maybe a step above our really competitive club team that I was playing with in Calgary, which was all former national team players. It was, maybe not even that good actually when I think about it, but it was the right fit at the time. Yeah, and it was an exceptional time. There's a season for everything, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
How long were you overseas then? How long?
Again, another year. Okay. We did a year there and then came back, and I got more into coaching and kind of stopped playing. Busy now, 2 kids and starting school, and we coached a lot of club volleyball, and sport was still a big part of our lives.
So when you knew you're done playing, was it I don't want to use the word easy. Did you just know it was the right time? Family, you just knew that your energy wasn't there to do it anymore? Like, what did that decision look like?
Yeah, it wasn't hard. Like, it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard to stop competing at that level. And I said, I'm never going to play club. It was just like, you're going to do it at that level or not at all. But, 5-6 years later, we're like, we should put a team in the Talisman League, or,
Oh, you guys did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
And we we had an opportunity to compete as masters, and we'd go down to the States for quite a few years.
Yeah, and do well?
Yeah, we did well. And we went to World Masters Championships and won gold medals. Like, finally could beat the Russians. Like, what the heck? We maybe aged a little better. Yeah, we were good on that stage. So it's weird.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And like, I stopped playing last year just because I can't have any more ankle trauma. There comes a time when volleyball, the sport of volleyball, is like, we were trying to stay in, top tiers, and it's fast. Like, the girls are fast, the setters are fast, and there's feet on the other side of that line, and it was time.
It hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does it look like when you're kind of winding the playing career down? Where does the coaching, where does that fit in? Where does the schooling fit in? Like, how do they all start happening?
Well, the coaching thing was really natural because originally my husband was still coaching at the U of C. And so, like, the whole family just went along. We traveled Canada West, we went to tournaments, and it just, that ran its course too, because you can't be taking your kids out of school every Friday.
Yeah.
But we had a club. We had a feeder system for the U of C Dinos. So we stayed coaching in that and giving back, right? Like, all the people that, trained me and supported me and try to do the same for some other kids. And it was good. It was really fun.
And natural? Like, did you always know coaching was going to be a thing for you?
I did not know it was, but I think it was pretty natural. Yeah, I was again, really kind of in the weeds person, like details. And so I think my strength as a coach was really the technical error detection and correction. Like, as an athlete, I could feel it. And then to help athletes feel it and fix themselves so that you're not overcoaching them, but the root of the problem. Not like, don't miss your serve. Oh, actually,
thanks,
teach
coach.
them. So all you hear is miss your serve. So I think that was my strength, and yeah, it was really fun.
The school piece, what'd you do? So you finished your 5 years, and then did you pick up something later?
So what I did was, throughout all of that and babies, and I remember getting identified through Sport Canada, a Women in Sport Leadership, and I had given birth, and 4 days later I was flying to Ottawa with my newborn and to be interviewed for this program, like an apprenticeship salaried position, to be trained by some really good multi-sport, different sports, different modules.
Yep.
To get women in sport leadership. So I got in that program. I think it was 4 years. So I had funding and it was phenomenal. It was good. It was just all happening. I think, like, you asked me if I had this plan. I said yes. I didn't really know. But I didn't really want to take on a head coaching position at a university.
Yep.
I still had this other maker creator side. I didn't want to be just into sport.
Yep.
And so that other side started pulling me. I think as creatives, like, I don't know. I wasn't bored in sport leadership, but there's a lot of what ifs. What if I had time to do this?
Yep.
So I was working, actually, the time frame is, I'm so sorry. I'm all over the map.
It doesn't matter.
From high school graduation to working in interior design, maybe like 10 or 12 years later.
Yep.
And I never finished environmental design because I went back to play pro. And then I just went, I don't know if I want to be an architect. I just like, I want to be a little bit of a lot of things. So I didn't go and do the formal training and started to do interior design. And I was doing that for 27 years. But I was always painting and making and creating and building and repurposing and running and jumping and sweating and spitting and
all of it.
Full on.
So what's the program out east? What is that? What was that for, your program? That leadership one?
Well, Sport Canada had funding to identify some, young women who wanted to get into sport leadership. And so they would rally around us. I think there was 4 or 5 of us in the program per quadrennial, maybe more.
Yep.
I'm not sure of the intake.
Yep.
But we just got exposed to some incredible things. Like they'd have conferences and they'd bring in, not only Canadian, but also visiting coaches and talking about all different, principles. And so we were just exposed to a higher level of education, but not through a university setting.
Gotcha.
It would be like a master's in coaching now. That program ran out of money, I'm sure. And unfortunately.
So the interior design piece. So let's get into this like creative zone.
Yeah.
Interior design, you just kind of picked it up as a natural thing?
Well, my mom started her own business like way in the early 70s. Like she had a home-based business. She was motivated. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and my mom took an online course through an American school, and there wasn't a lot of formal programs. Like you could go to Winnipeg. She couldn't do that. She had 4 kids.
Yep.
Mount Royal hadn't started their program, their diploma program to begin with.
Yep.
So she got educated and she started shadowing designers, and she got word of mouth referrals, and she started to, she's still alive. She's just she's just a source of inspiration from that standpoint, and not a jock, but such an influence for me. And she just sees things differently and can turn garbage into something beautiful. So she was my inspiration. And she really liked to do the beautification at the end. She loved to do the fabrics and the pillows and the gorgeous, more decorating stuff. And I really like to, the details. I like to do the drawings and do the renderings and the elevations. So we worked together and we did a lot of renovations, and she did some commercial work, and it was really lovely. And we have a great relationship. So It was
sounds like,
yeah, stuff just happened. I don't know. I'm lucky.
So the interior stuff, scratching that creative itch, was it necessary that once you figured out that you had that creative side, you needed to give it some energy? Was it a natural thing?
It was, but I was still, hauling kids to gyms and coaching elite volleyball and coaching kids in sport, and I really felt it was a privileged thing to do. But to be honest with you, I'm like, this is creative 10% of the time. And it's 90% project management. I want to create. I want to flip that. Like I want to be creative more of the time. And to be honest with you, fortunately, I didn't have to, feed my kids.
Yep.
Brad had a good salary. And so interesting. After the Olympics in London, I had wrapped up my desire to be a career interior designer anymore. And my exit plan was, I'm going to start painting. I hadn't really painted. In university, I did. I specialized in more printmaking, and I took all options and had a minor in fine art.
Yeah.
And I just need to be creative more of the time. So let's just dive in. Say yes. Let's do this. It was the best thing. It was just the best thing.
So you say 2 things that will catch my attention. Obviously, the Olympic story is fascinating to me just because it's the Olympics, the highest pinnacle of sport. That's obviously very interesting to me. But the idea of painting at later in life and just going all in.
Yeah. When I started painting, I had a pretty good idea of what people wanted to look at, because I made their spaces for them beautiful. I was a good listener. I was a really good listener. And I try to create something unique for them. So 2 years into painting, I'm painting these images that I thought they might want to look at. And then I remember selling my first painting. I was like, oh my gosh, seriously? You're buying this? I don't even know how to, what do you want to pay? Like,
you give me $500?
Yeah, no, they paid a lot.
Awesome.
Because I had worked with them, and I don't know,
Was it a big piece?
It was a big piece. Yeah.
Like how big?
Like 3 by 4 feet.
Okay.
And she saw me working on it in my studio. I had a studio attached to my home. And she's like, I want to buy it. And I'm like, what? She goes, I looked through the window. And I'm like, my paintings aren't even for sale. So just really lucky. But I looked at that probably my 3rd year of painting full time, and I painted every day. It's like, jock, you got to go hard. You got to commit. You got to work at this.
Yep.
The answer is in the doing. You got to do it. You got to figure it out. I thought, those paintings aren't my paintings. They're not coming from the right place. So then I just tried to I mean, it sounds, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I just really let the paintings flow out of me, and they got pretty bombastic and pretty colorful and pretty wild. And then the reception was decent, you know. I thought I was just protecting the canvas from the elements, but people saw that as more authentic and more original. And I was lucky to kind of have a visual language.
Yep.
Quickly in my painting career.
Quickly is rare, right?
Quickly is rare, but I just went, whatever, like just, I don't know, maybe as an athlete, it's like, well, just live boldly, just do it. And again, I didn't need the reception of others to be there.
Yeah.
I needed to do it from my soul, and it came from a good place, and it was more than enough. And it was never about the reception of others, but it felt really authentic.
The tie to sport and art, whether it's like, I don't know, like you said, the work ethic to actually put the work and time in to figure it out, to be thoughtful enough to like sit with your thoughts and actually figure out that this, you know, this style isn't mine. I need to figure out my own style, like dedication, high performance, like it's all wrapped together.
Well, I think there's persistence, a resilience. Like in sport, you fail a lot.
Yep.
Like you're working on a painting and you're like centimeters from absolute destruction. Like this is just going off the rails. Like, but to kind of get back in the saddle and to figure it out. I don't paint literally, so I'm not like trying to create that. I don't take a photograph and think, okay, I just need to make it look like that. I have to just kind of be in my head, and I put paint down and then I react to the paint, put more paint, and oh shoot, where am I going? So I never really knew where I was going, but I knew when I got there. And then when I finish and sign it, that's it. I don't typically go back into paintings. But, you know, painting and sport, I know it's odd, but like my sport, there was a lot of very much discipline. You can't be out there freelancing. It's not like, you know, give me the ball, I think I'm going to be over here. Very disciplined in structure and the team, where you go and what you do and what you cover. Like there's not, I mean, there's creativity in that, but not that much. So maybe it was more of an opposite. You know, the structure of the team sport at the time that I played and the discipline required to do your job and make others look better by staying in your place and covering your area and building everyone up. And then painting is very soulful and very quiet. And at sport, I think I was an extrovert. I was quite a leader. And painting is very quiet and very soulful, and it's quite a contrast.
I find that fascinating, just that soulful experience through something creative. I find it very rare. And when everything kind of gets quiet and you can do this creative, you can have this creative outlet, it's special. I had that with playing music.
Oh, wow.
I was DJing, and it was just this like, just everything just kind of, especially it was loud, but it was just
still
very creative and very just like, it was all in your head. It was between these headphones, and it was just, it's way different than sport.
It might be a good time to segue into like painting kind of, and sport saved me too. We had some terrible tragedy. Beginning 10 years ago, my nephew, who was a professional motorcycle racer, died on the track in the national championships on I think a big Triumph. He was a speed bike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, big, like just devastating. My brother's only son. He has a daughter as well. And then 3 years after that, our son. So my husband had 4 children, and then we had 2 children. So our first son, Brett, is over in Barcelona with his wife. He was a orthopedic surgeon resident. He's out running. I get a phone call from his wife's dad in Calgary telling me that Brett had passed away, our son. And we talked to him that morning, and he said, "Mom, you'll be so happy. The most dangerous part of the trip is over. We returned the rental car," because we lived in Europe. We know how they drive. And just like the devastation around that. And then not to jump past that, because I'm going to come back to that. That was, my child. Mm-hmm. My stepson passes away 4 years ago. So we have been tested. Mm. And, right away when we got the news of Brett, like healthy, active athlete, doctor, genius, life of the party, crazy fun guy. That guy just collapses jogging. Mm. Like, such a mystery. Such a mystery. But, the tie into sport and creating and how we've been able to weather that, like we look back on it, and sport is so artificial. Like, I talked for a half an hour on how it just like fuels you and inspires you, and the whistle blows and the score comes one way or the other, and it's all really irrelevant. Yeah. Like in the big scheme of things, it's really irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But you go every day, you control the controllable, and you try to do your best. Mm-hmm. And the outcome in sport is this or that. It teaches you these things. It teaches you failure and getting back up and resiliency and building people. And I'm thinking, how did sport and creating help us weather this storm that we're in? Like, grief doesn't disappear, but it has, the grief and the despair of all the trauma has really not been a blessing, because I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but has changed us. Mm. And it's to say, you don't know where the finish line is, so you better live well. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is so true. And just if you find that you have this despair and this pain, then you also have this opportunity for this joy and passion and compassion and the blue sky today, even if it's minus 40. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how we live. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how can I be grateful for these traumas? Mm-hmm. I'm not. I miss him every second of every day. Mm-hmm. But our lives have expanded. Mm.
Well, it's fascinating you say that right now, because when I first met you outside, you talked about the blue skies.
Oh.
And I was and I was like,
didn't notice.
Well, I was like, I appreciate when people are very, like, when they're positive. You could easily walked up back there and said, "Man, it's cold. This was hard to get to, or this is whatever," right? But you were talking about the blue skies. Yeah. Which I find, it speaks to exactly what you're talking about.
None of those boys would want us to give up the life we have for those that we lost. Mm. Like, that's a lot of loss. That's a lot of loss. It's out of order. But you also become acutely aware of the impermanence of everything. Mm. And, like, really, who has anything figured out? Yeah. But somehow you do. You do. Like, and I think our life prepared us to figure out how to trudge through this. And, I don't want to get rid of my grief, because we don't have new memories. We don't have new stories. So, to bring up the names of these boys and our son, and it's just what could have been. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like, what could we be doing now? What would he be doing now? Mm-hmm. What would his family look like, etc. Mm-hmm. Or what would, any of these boys be doing? Yeah. So, but
how do you summon the courage to move forward?
Well, again, like, I think it's life is pretty good, these boys all died unexpectedly, living their lives, and crazy so much in one family. But like, you have an opportunity, make the most of it. That's how we've lived. That's how I've lived. Do this, do that, whatever. Okay, figure it out. Say yes, show up, do your best. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of living to do. Like, it becomes profoundly obvious that you don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know. Are we going to get home tonight? So we better make the most of this. And I'm loving this, by the way. Mm-hmm. And this is special for me to be here with you.
Do you, how does it affect your art? Is it when it's all like, it's you in a space, and it's like, it's everything in your head.
Yeah.
It's coming out, and there's all sorts of inputs coming. What is that space? Is that space a sanctuary for you? Is it cathartic? Is it like, how important has art been through all this?
Absolutely, all of those things. Like, so our son, Brett, passed away in September 2016. And I always had a big solo show in November. And then I said to his widow, Jessica, how am I going to do this show? Like, most of the work was done. Like, I paint for a year and probably do 40 or 50 pieces. Wow. And then we literally open our home for a weekend and we take furniture out and hang the art. How am I going to, like, I need to be starting that. Like, how am I going to pull this off? I had printed all my cards and started my mailing, and she just looked at me and, like, straight face said, why wouldn't you do this? What would Brett want you to do? And I thought, how am I going to do it? But it was really good advice. And so, flung open the doors. People they come in, they don't know what to say. We had an amazing community around us, and we quickly were very open and honest about our grief. Yeah. My husband and I never judged how each of us would manage this. Yeah. Like, he went right back to teaching. He needed to be with the students. Yeah. I got on the plane and went to Barcelona because I needed to be there. Yep. All these things just happened. It was very organic. And, like 6 weeks later, we have 185 people through our home celebrating my art, most of it made before this happened. And, like, wow, to be surrounded by that love and that, genuine care of our community. Our community was so much bigger than we thought. Like, when you have a trauma like that, they just show up and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I had no idea we mattered, and we mattered so much, and they lifted us and they listened and they let us talk. I have a morning walking routine, and my girlfriends, I got back from Barcelona. Next morning, I'm out there in the dark in Glenmore Park, and I'm just, like, talking the whole time. It was a way for us to process. Like, we were in shock, but they didn't interrupt. They just let me talk and try to process all of that. And, it comes and goes. Yeah.
Does your, after you had the open house in November, the next body of work,
well,
did it change?
Some of the biggest stuff I've ever done, like, I saw a sign, apply for this public art and this public grant and this and that. And it was just like, you got to kind of just, I don't think we put our head down and just, like, denied our grief and thought, we'll just keep working. I mean, some people do that. Yep. I don't think we did. I think we were a little more mindful of it, but I just said, well, again, say yes, do that, apply. And then I got some big grants to do some pretty cool stuff. And for sure it was a distraction. Yeah. Did the work change? Some of it did. Like, I might do a smaller series of it. And it's funny because I actually would sell paintings, and I had to phone people and say, I can't part with that painting, and I can't explain it because I never felt that attached. I was attached to the process, not the end result. Yeah. But there's 2 paintings, and I had to unsell them. Like, I said, I can't, and they were like, no problem. They knew what we've been through, and they're like, it's fine, no problem. And then like a year later on this one piece, I got a call from someone who I really respected and, again, played volleyball with. And she was going through a cancer nightmare. And her husband said, do you still have this piece? She saw it at your open house. And I'm like, oh my God, it's not for sale. I already unsold it from these other people. And I said, I do. And yes, it's for sale. So it found the right home. And the last remaining piece from that body of work is a big piece, and I think it's the only piece I won't part with. And was it something else? Yeah, it was. I don't even know what it was, but I look at it and I go, wow, I was mad. Like, not mad, angry, but it's crazy. There's so much going on in this painting, and I think that was just sort of our mindset. Without asking, we never asked why. Why us? Why our sons? Why our nephew? It was just somehow manage it, deal with it.
That saying yes and applying for grants, and like, were you apprehensive because you thought it was, in the past, it was like out of your skill set? How do you just, like, it was just you didn't feel comfortable reaching that far? Like, was there a reason there was like this, you could see to a certain point, but you weren't willing to go?
Yeah, probably some truth in that. I don't think it was about, was my work okay to apply? It was more like, it's pretty unique. Like, it's kind of out there. It doesn't look like all the other stuff.
Yep.
Does it need to be more literal or mainstream or intimidating? Not really. Just like whatever.
Yep.
In sport, you go, you try, you fail, you serve harder, you hit harder. Yeah. You just recalibrate.
Yeah.
You learn to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they can say no. I remember applying for a juried show, and like, I had so much respect for a member of this committee that refused my piece and called and went over this piece. Like, they really knew this piece of art. They were like, we had a real problem with the square shape on the right ascending border, and like, could you explain why you thought to put that there? And I was like, no, I actually can't. Like, then I was like belligerent. I'm like, no, it's okay, you didn't like my painting, I don't mind, but no, I can't explain why it's there. It's so profoundly right there, but I couldn't verbalize why it needed to be there. But it's kind of how I am with my art. Like, it's fine. You don't have to like it.
Yep.
But I have to be true to it. So maybe that confidence from sport.
For sure.
And I didn't need to be in that show. And then the next day I got accepted into something way bigger with some artists that I was just like almost stalking, so crazy about them. And I'm like, how am I in this show with these artists? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm not really pushing my art right now.
Yep.
So I'm a bit languishing with the marketing of it.
Oh, yeah?
Not in the production of it. I think it's just not the right time for me to be working on the business of art. I talk about the business of interior design, and not right now. I think I'm just kind of in the between. I'm creating, I'm doing some stuff, but I'm not applying. It's just,
which is okay, right?
It's like, so okay.
The creative world is such this like this whole thing, right? Like, it's just, it ebbs and flows, right? Some days you wake up and you're like, okay, I got this. And other days you're like, man, this is going to take everything I have to pull this off. But I think just to be able to sit with it, and understand that now's not the time. Yeah. Know that it's not gone, just not the time.
And you know what? These pieces don't have an expiry date. It's not milk.
Yeah.
It's there. It's got to be there. And I'm involved with, my parents live next door. They're 90 and 93, and it's so profound gift to have whatever. Yeah, I'm coming. A lot of technology, like the iPad isn't.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like whatever.
For the buttons.
You know, the back arrow. I love them so much. They've given me so much, and this is a gift to be present for that. Like, I'd go to I have a studio. I'm so lucky again. I have a studio a block away, free. Fortunately, you know, my brother has a home and it's a garage and he didn't need it. And
awesome.
I get there, I put all the paint out, then I get a phone call, and then I'm like, because I don't really know where I'm going with this art, but I kind of know, and now I'm doing something else. So I'm hesitant to get into that. I'm just really, I go, you know, maybe 2 or 3 days instead of every day.
Yep.
And often it gets disrupted and it's like, whatever, it's just paint. It's just drying on the palette. And then I go back the next day, I'm like, where am I going with this artwork? Well, it's a new day.
Yep.
Go somewhere else.
Did you paint the mural over in Lakeview on that community center? That great community center?
Yeah.
So I ride by that thing like 3 or 4 days a week. On my pedal bike. It's just part of my loop, and then literally I come around there and go by the pathway by the little kids thing, and I see that mural. Yeah. Over and over and over.
That was one of those, you know, like, apply for this is my neighborhood grant, and I'm like, I'm in I'm in shock. I'm angry. Our son died. And there's this big thing about, like, this is my neighborhood. Well, it's my neighborhood. You bet it's my neighborhood. I've lived here, well, by then, like 50 years. But I don't know where I'm going to get the strength to apply for this. Yep. And my husband, God love him, He is so amazing.
Sounds like a fella.
Amazing guy. He's like, what do you need? I'm like, well, I need you to write the entire application. He's like, I'm on it. I'll give it to you to proofread. So he writes it all. He's like, I need some images. I'm like, okay, well, attach that and that. And yeah, that looks great. That's exactly perfect. And he submits it and I get it. And I was like, wow, good job, Brad.
Thank you.
I never told them I didn't even apply for it.
High five again.
Yeah. And then that project, they originally wanted me to paint on the scaffolding, and I'm like, it just wasn't, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to take the safety course.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just like, well, how about we talk to Flagworks? How about I do an original? How about they blow it up? How about you attach it to the building? They're like, that sounds great too.
Done.
Like, I couldn't see myself on the scaffolding for 2 months.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, like, again, I just was honest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would have been disappointed if they said, well, we'll get someone else who wants to be on the scaffold and do the safety course and figure out the high lift and all that.
Yep.
I would have been going, okay, it's fine. But they said, great, let's do that. So the original hangs in the community hall.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I went to that site, and first of all, the building was kind of pink.
Oh, yeah.
And like, they got a grant for an artist grant through the Calgary Foundation. And I'm like, so we need to paint the building.
So
Like the interior designer in me. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, it's pink. Like
faded.
The metal is like, we need, and they're like, really? And I'm like, no, really, like, it's got to be a different color. And they're like, okay, well, we'll try to find the money. And they did.
That's that like dark gray.
Yeah. Good for you to remember that. So I go to that site, and then at a certain time, the low light, the sun setting in the west, would cast these amazing shadows on that building from the spruce trees that were in the playground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's it. And I was supposed to commemorate the opening of the new, the city pathway on the east side of Earl Grey.
Yeah.
They wanted to commemorate. That was a big deal. You could circumnavigate. But they gave me 100% creative license. And then I had spin-offs from that. Like, people would see it, and I got to do some giant residential art. Like, how big can you do it? I'm like, oh, well, I could do it 9x5. Is that big enough? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty big. And some pretty neat tie-ins back to people who, well, this one commission I got was an orthopedic surgeon who mentored my son. And he said, our son, his son, our son said, Lakeview is a really cool place to raise your kids. And so this doctor bought a property on Glenmore Park, and literally 2 days after our son passed away, the original home was being demolished. And I knew, I had met him. He was real influential in our son's career. And I just stood on the sidewalk and bawled. Like, I'm like, how can this be? Like, this should be Brett building a house in the neighborhood, and I should be raising grandbabies. And I thought, no, he's doing what Brett told him to do. Like, find a way to savor this. And then I got this big commission, and then there's a memorial bench, and then the bench is in the painting, and this is in their home, and this was their first original piece of art. And it is huge. Like, how much healing was in that? But at first, I just wanted to throw rocks through the window, right? But it was so profound and so amazing.
But hard to not follow that first urge to throw rocks through the window. You know, like, to actually, whatever it takes to like keep it together and to then to let it all unfold that way in this like interesting experience.
Well, sport, right?
Yeah.
You can't rip the head off the official.
Yeah.
You got to take.
Yeah.
I did get some red cards.
I feel like you got some fire in there.
I got a fine in my first match in Italy. Oh yeah. Like, first of all, I forgot I wasn't the captain, and that I didn't speak the language, and I shouldn't shake the referee stand. And my players were almost attacking me because you don't do that over there. I learned. But it was remarkable. Like, the memorial bench is in the park. This doctor buys a lot on the park, the closest home to the bench. You know, like there's just all these things. And it just, I don't really prescribe to the universe is just going to look after you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're hardworking and you earn things because you persist and you're resilient. But the universe does look after you also. You have to trust in that.
You need the other things too, though, right? You need that persistence and and being a good human and, you know, doing the right, like, you got to have all that too.
Yeah. And it comes back. But we don't live how we live because someday we're going to need to make a withdrawal. It's not how we are. So the universe has been good to us. And I guess you could say it's been terrible to us.
For sure.
But it is what it is. And it's all okay.
Your art, right? Your art. Do you have a vision for it? Do you know where this is gonna, like, you know, right now it's in a spot. Whatever the spot turns, it's gonna evolve into something else. Are you okay with art just kind of happening for you for the?
I'm really okay with it just happening. More than ever. Like I'd be developing a body of work and a color palette and I'd be exploring subject matter, and it's really weird. Right now it's just, I don't know what it is, but I'm so 100% okay with not knowing what it is.
That's good.
I wouldn't say I'm languishing, although it might look like it. I don't know. You're a visual learner, I'm sure. I'm always thinking of ways to take nothing and make it into something. Art isn't only putting paint on a canvas. I mean, you can live an artistic life without having something to show for it, although I do. Like I'm repurposing things, I'm cutting things apart, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doodling, I'm drawing. I did some books through COVID, just my personal experience of what was going on. It's all there and it's all unfolding, and it's just, I don't really know. I guess I'm okay not knowing, because I thought I knew. I thought I was going to raise these boys and then there was going to be this and that, and I was going to sit here and say my son's a spine surgeon and he worked so hard for this. It didn't happen. So it's all okay.
That being a creative person can be for me, I'll speak from sometimes it's a bit of a torment. It's like this inner struggle of, like, you know, there's something there. You just can't, like, figure it out, put it together. And then all of a sudden when it happens, and it's all these experiences and all these moments and all these things you've seen, and that's what this show is. This show is like 20 years of experiences with different, you know, dipping my feet into becoming a DJ, a graphic designer, you know, like, and then this happens. But there's so many of these moments of struggle where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where this is going. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But then when it all, like, clicks, you're like, it's very calming.
Yeah. I mean, what you've done is remarkable. And that you've just trusted. You've trusted that you're going to figure it out.
Well,
you're going to mush your way through it. And then you can now reflect and go, this does make sense. Like, you've asked me some questions like how you're this jock and you're this, that, and then you do this and you do that. And I'm kind of looking back, and you forced me to say, I guess it does kind of make sense. But I don't think I came in thinking how much sense it made. And how our experiences have really taken us to where we are today. And for me to be okay with where my art is now, I know I see things differently, and that gives you such a quiet confidence. Just to know that it's there. It's nowhere else.
For sure.
And like you talked about, kind of the still, like the in-between when stuff just happens. Sometimes you have to stop doing to just be, to figure out what is next. And I was living a very busy life. It was like every day was full and action-packed, and I loved all that. And I'm learning a little bit for a little bit of the day to be still. I'm better at that. It's been a chore.
You still walk every day?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Around the reservoir?
Yeah, a lot. Well, not when it's minus 40, but yeah, in the parks. Look, Calgary's amazing. Seriously, there's so many great places to explore in the mountains, in the whole Bow corridor, and I'm really at a point in my life where the simple is good. We traveled so much. We were all over the world. People in my age group, they're all like, "Oh, we got a cruise and we're going to France," and I'm like, "Good, have fun."
I was there when I was 20.
I was like, kind of, we lived there.
Yeah.
And where are you off to? We're going to get away from winter and simple. Like our life it's large and fantastic, but very simple. Like I love getting up in the dark and riding or driving to the Killarney pool. And it's so basic and it's so fantastic. And the people are so normal. Yeah. And it's there. We have so many opportunities in this city. So much.
We're lucky.
We're so lucky.
It's funny you bring up that driving in the dark. So I go to Mount Royal in the mornings.
Yeah.
At 6, and so it's dark. But I love it.
Yeah.
I love when it's quiet, it's dark, it's cold, and it's just the routine of it. The benefits obviously of staying active and staying fit, but it's just, I love it.
You are probably like me, and maybe you've thought about this. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I only figured this out about 15 years ago. If I'm not active and creative every single day, it's like, look out. Don't go near her. You might get your head ripped off.
I figured that out also.
Yeah.
And I figured it out when I was working in these, like, in an office job in cubes, in a cubicle, and I was eating, drinking, not working out, and I was cranky.
Yeah. And
then the minute I figured that out, that it was all my physical fitness was tied to my mental fitness. And then I can manage myself when I'm at home, and if I'm being irritable with Jody, I know exactly what's going on. I haven't worked out in 3 days, and I probably haven't done something cool creatively. And it's just like, now I know.
It's so simple, but like nobody told me that. But it's what our essence is. Yep. And like you can't deny that. So thankfully you're in a position in life where you can listen and honor that. And I've been able to do the same. Like I fear for people who haven't figured that out. They don't have to do what we do. It's just exciting for us. Yep. But to realize how simple it is to get sort of homeostasis.
And this is the cool experience about having the show too. Because then you saying that, me trusting or thinking that's like important to me, it just verifies things for me too.
Yeah.
So that's why the show's so cool, because I get to pick the brain of, really spectacular people.
You're a really creative and curious person, and you're an amazing listener. And it's hard for people to come in and talk about themselves for an hour, but like you're phenomenal. Like it's exciting what you're doing here, and I can't imagine where you're going to go with it.
Thank you. I'll keep you informed.
Yes, I'll be following.
Good, thank you. I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Oh, Calgary. Pride. I traveled around the world. I say I'm from Calgary. People knew where Calgary was. They knew Canada. They knew Calgary. Opportunity. Blue skies. Got to throw that in there. Like a real can-do spirit. I don't want to live in the past, and I don't want to say it's changing and it's different. There's challenges with a bigger city, and everything's about that. But it's a great place to live, and I don't know. I had opportunities to live a lot of places, and it's been amazing to call Calgary home, and Calgary's been really good to us. Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for asking.
I knew this was going to be a spectacular one, so thanks for living up to it.
I'm going to cry. Happy tears.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.